We are continuing with our geography lessons on settlements. As we were doing yesterday, we're dealing with urban structure. So we are continuing with that lesson where we ended. So our smartboard is opening the pages here. But before we delve into our lesson, we are going to look at this page. As you can see, we are proudly sponsored by the following: Basic Education, Department of Basic Education, VT Africa Holdings, Fibotech, and Vastrotech. And you are required to log in when we do our assessments to hellosmart.com. Then you sign in as a guest and you enter the ID number 598754. So please take note of this. This is very important for you to engage in our lessons. Right, let's move on with our lesson where we ended yesterday. Right, I just thought that we should actually, because we moved a little bit fast yesterday, we need to recap from slide 14, which talks of the hierarchy, the urban hierarchies. Let's look at this. We talked about the law order, that we have got the areas of the cities which are the law order. And when we talk of law order, we are talking of something that many people can access, something that is of a simple nature. Like we talk of spaza shops, we talk of post offices, shippings, and pubs. And then when we go to middle order, we are talking of, for you who can remember, we are going to supermarkets, restaurants, and when we go to high order, we're talking of department stores, hospitals, cinemas, leisures, surgeons, and so forth, surgeries. Let's look at this. This is actually lower and higher order centers. Central places classified into lower and higher order centers according to the order level of the goods and services they provide to their sphere of influence. So what are the central place law order? When we talk of the central place law order, we are talking of hamlets, villages, and towns. And in this area, there are more people per area, which means we have got a huge number of people actually accessing those. And then when you go to increase when these increase, they are increasing in size. That's the law order services are increasing in size, functions, order of services, threshold population, sphere of influence, and range of goods. By the way, we said that the range of goods is what? It is the distance at which one can travel to access the goods. Then it increases to the central place high order. So when they become high order, we are talking of cities, metropolis, conurbations. And when you get to the high order, you find that we have got fewer people per area. We're not going to dwell much on that because it's just a recap of the lesson that we did yesterday. Then let's look at these comparisons. We did these comparisons where we looked at lower order and high order centers. The lower order centers are close together and serve smaller areas. The high order are further apart. Lower order provide only lower order goods and services. They are few, and the high order, they provide both lower and higher order goods and specialist services, and they've got multiple functions. Small sphere of influence, that's the lower order, and we have a large sphere of influence on the higher order. Then on the lower order, we've got the low population threshold, whereas there is a high population threshold on the higher order. Then we have small range of goods on the lower order and a large range of goods on the higher order. Supply only to surrounding areas on the lower order, but supply is to settlements and attract people from further away, that is in the higher order. Right, we looked at this, the Christolus central place theory, which actually tells us that there are more low order centers than higher order centers. So central places of the same order are spaced the same distance apart from each other at every point in a regular pattern. Each central place has its own sphere of influence in which the threshold population is found. There are more lower order central places. This is very important for us to bear in mind. On this one, so you find there are more lower order central places in an area than higher order central places. So if you look at this diagram here, you're going to actually see what we are talking about. Okay, we need to take the magic pen. I taken the wrong pen. So if you look at this diagram here, right, this diagram actually shows us that you have got more lower order than higher order. So if you look at this key here that we have here, you find that we've got towns, markets, and villages in a large number. Then we have got the higher order, which is the city. It's only one, and we've got fewer towns, which means that the higher the order becomes, the lower it is in the market. Then when you look at this, we are looking at the boundaries of the markets. And then we look at the central places that are there, the first order and the second order and their boundaries. So when you look at the third order, you find that the third order has got a larger boundary, whereas the first order is the least boundary. Let me see here. Okay, we've got the first order, which is our law. Right, the first order is our law. When you look at the first order, we've got the boundaries that are thin, and the more the lower the order, the precedence or the higher the occurrence of that of the boundaries. So if you look at this, you find that as you can see the boundaries here, whereas this second order, you are having them in dotted lines, and they are fewer than. And when you come to the third one, so when you come to the third, which has got the thickly, you find that we only have a few, which is only one boundary that we have, which is strategically located in the center. So this actually implies we have got higher, we've got more low order than the higher. The is fewer. So that is what we have been explaining from the previous slide. Now we have got only two questions here that we need to do, which were set on smart response. And you need to connect in order to participate in that activity. And here goes the assessment. This one, let me skip this. We did this yesterday. Let me skip. This is our smart response. Right, you need to sign in to HelloSmart. You need to sign into that page that I gave you earlier on. So these are the details here. These are the details you need to sign in. So you need to log in and to HelloSmart. You need to log in order for you to start the activity. Unfortunately, we are having some challenges with our connectivity here. Let's go down to our activity. It's easier. It's still loading. Just have to be patient. I don't see anyone logging in here. Unfortunately, we could not. So what we need to do now is just to go to the next slide and do the questions that we can. So we are going to come to this one, which is the just dash is the minimum number of people in the surrounding area of a central place needed to support its function for it to remain profitable. Is it urban hierarchy? Let's go back to the definitions and see what are the definitions. What is an urban hierarchy? During the process of urban settlement, development, some rural settlements become bigger. So the process of development carries on until eventually an urban hierarchy of settlements is established. So as you can see here, this is the definition of urban hierarchy, and that does not that definition there. So we need to go back. Let's go back to the question. When you look at sphere of influence, is it the one, the minimum number of people? What is the definition of sphere of influence? We can come back here and look at our definition. So when you look here, sphere of influence is actually the area of central places. Then threshold population is also on those responses is the minimum number of people needed to support a central place service to remain profitable. This actually gives us the most appropriate definition that we need. So when we come back here, it means our answer is actually C. So when you come to view our answer here, you find that the answer is, the correct answer is actually C. So this is our answer here. And then we need to move on and come to this one. says the dash is the surrounding area that is served by a range of goods and services provided by an urban settlement. So you simply, urban hierarchy, it cannot be. Sphere of influence, it cannot be from the definition that we looked at. So it is the surrounding area that is served by a range. Then central place, range of goods. Okay, I was mistaken here. What is the answer here? When you say is the surrounding area that is served by a range of goods, that's the sphere of influence, is it? So we need to look at this, and then you find that our answer is actually B, which is the sphere of influence. Then we go on to central places. Central places are classified as according to the order of level of the goods and services they provide to their sphere of influence. What is the answer here? So this actually leads us to back to the definitions, and then we can check what are the definitions. Then we come here and look at our definition and find what is the answer. So we go back to the question. Right. Right, central place is classified as lower and higher order centers. That's it. So we have lower and higher order centers. And then we go to another question, which talks of goods. Which talks of goods or services provided by a central place and be classified as is our lower and the higher order functions and services. Then we go on to the question number 5, which is the dash is the maximum distance people will travel to buy goods. This is such a revision, as I said, of the previous lesson so that we prepare for the next slide that we need to look at, and we don't have to confuse the terms. The dash is the maximum distance people travel to buy goods and use services provided by a central. It is the range of goods, is it? Yes, it is the range of goods. That is our answer there. Then let's look at question number 6. And is a system of ranking urban settlements in order of importance according to their size and functions. What is that? N is a system of ranking urban settlements. There is urban hierarchy, there is sphere of influence, there is threshold population, there is range of goods. We look at the definitions of the other 3, and they cannot be, the last 3 cannot be the answer. So our answer is obviously A, which is urban hierarchy. Then we are looking at our last question before we move to the next slide. A dash is town is any town that provides goods and services to the smaller towns and settlements around it. What is that town? Is it a central place town? Is it a range of goods town which provides goods and services to the smaller and towns? That must be a central place, is it? Let's check if our answer is correct. Yes, it is a central place. So This is the correct answer. Learners, we need to move to the next. To the next lesson that we were doing. Which is slide number. I need to remove the ink here. Right, let's move. This is the wrong slide. We actually need slide 14 here. So as we are studying, we need to actually make use of the question papers that are in the exams and customize ourselves with the ways of answering those questions. And of particular importance is to always study the material that is kept aligned. You don't have to read, right, every book that you come across. We need to customize also with the terms and the terminologies that are used in the actual. So we looked at some of these structures yesterday, and I want us to go to this slide here, where we are looking at the CBD, right? When we talk of the regional CBD, we are talking of the area that develops outside the main CBD. It attracts businesses, shops, and offices from the CBD. There are highland values, isolated store clusters, commercial ribbon, development, neighborhood, and regional shopping. Then we go to what we call the transition zone. It is around the city, around the CBD, and then it is actually called the zone of change, also known as the zone of decay. Because why is it called a zone of decay? Is because most of the time you find dilapidated buildings in that area. Many dilapidated buildings are taken over by developers or other functions and renovated. So here are the main aspects that we need to take. So it is zone of decay, but it is also a zone of very much potential for development, which is a zone of change. Then we do have mixed functions, and this actually is linked to this. So dilapidated buildings and the zone, and it is actually linked. It is actually linked to this. So dilapidated buildings and zone of decay. It is actually the same thing that we are describing here. That because it is the buildings are falling apart, then that means things are not as they were before. And that's a form of decay that is happening. Then buildings are taken over by developers or other functions and renovated. This is now symboling the zone of change aspect, because developers are actually looking at those areas and going on to buy the land in that area or the buildings in that area and renovating them. Then land values are still high. Why are the land values still high? They are still high because this area, as we said here, it is just outside the CBD. The land in the CBD and just outside the CBD is of high values. So because of that, the land is still expensive to buy. Then we look at the following note, which is zone of mixed and changing land use. For example, residential becoming commercial or vice versa. So you might find that maybe the area just outside the CBD was a residential area before, but because of its proximity to the CBD, some developers and some investors are seeing the potential of turning those residential areas into commercial buildings. Then they make them maybe offices, or they create office space. They may start some service companies. They might establish a bank and so forth, service industry and so forth. Some of them are turning those residential areas into schools and so forth. So that's why we are talking of mixed, that they are actually mixed land use in that area. Then we look at the land use zones, the industrial, and we talk of the light, mostly found in the transition zone or in planned industrial, is close to the road transport routes, eases raw material transportation, manufactures light industrial products. Little noise and air pollution means it can be close to residential areas. Then heavy industry, this is usually outside the CBD. It is outside the CBD, close to major transport routes, manufactures major industrial products away from residential areas because they cause pollution, and this might present a health hazard to the people. Land use, land values, large areas of land needed for large buildings, low income housing may be found nearby. Causes heavy air and noise pollution. That's why it has to be away from residential areas. Land use zones. Let's look at planned industrial estates found near railway lines or roads on the outskirts of the city, built on low-cost land. Dormitory townships found in areas where people lived while working in the mines or factories during apartheid era. People work in a nearby city has since developed into diverse residential, for example, Soweto. Then informal settlements, they are found on the city outskirts, usually along transport routes, range from illegal no service delivery to legal settlements with limited or no basic service. Range from non-permanent to permanent dwellings. Non-permanent dwellings made from any found materials such as plastic, wood, zinc. High building density, poverty levels are high, and the crime rates usually are also high. The low income is close to PD or other regional commercial or industrial areas, close to the workplace and public transport, small and similar. They are small, similar looking houses built close together on small areas of land, and we are well accustomed about the RDP housing. So this is actually an example of the low income houses. Basic service delivery is there. And then we have little space available for recreation activities. Then we have the middle income zone between high and low income, found in the suburbs between CBD and the outskirts of the city, close to schools and regional shopping centers, medium-sized standalone houses or townhouse complexes, medium building density, good service delivery. Good service delivery facilities, including recreation activities. Then the high income, as you can see here, you can see that this actually looks poshy. Let me just bring this to the fore so that we can all have a look. So if you look at this, you can see that these are actually mansions that are built here overlooking a land, and this actually looks expensive. So these are this is the high income that is being talked about here, which is found away from the CBD and industrial zones, found near parks and rural urban fringe, private transportation and easy access to highways and other major transportation routes, large and expensive properties, unique architectural designs, low income density. They could be found in golf estates. Then we look at recreational areas which are found in open areas without buildings set aside to be used for public gardens, parks, and reserves. Residents of the area use these areas for recreation, such as public swimming pools, zoos, parks, tourist attraction, and golf courses. Area has many trees and lawns to help clean the air, calm traffic, and reduce noise levels. Then let's look at what we call the rural urban fringe, which form the boundary between the rural and urban. Mixed land use with both urban and rural functions. Land use changes from rural to urban as the city expands. Land is less developed. Cheaper land allows for large properties, plots, and small holdings. Then the buffer zone, it is something typical of an apartheid state that used to exist in South Africa. And as you can see here, you find that it is found near open spaces, railways, or rivers. And as you can see in this picture here, you can see that there is a separation that is being done here between two communities. So, as I explained earlier on, used during the apartheid era to separate previously white settlements from black settlements, only found in South Africa because of apartheid in urban planning. But now this is also typical in some countries in the world where you find that there will be discrimination of a certain race or a certain people of a certain religion and so forth, and a buffer zone is created. So let's look at this. So as you can see here, you find that there is a large tract of land that are not developed in between. And as you can see, there's a security person here who has been posted to actually safeguard the area and make sure that people do not cross the boundaries. So as you can see here, you can see that there is a security personnel who are actually guarding the area and making sure that people do not cross the boundaries. So that's why we say this is typical of the apartheid regime. Let's look at the green belts. These are green areas such as parks or conservation areas. No, there are no buildings. Preservation of natural vegetation in urban areas. Areas of natural. There are no buildings. That's very important. These are green areas. Preservation of natural vegetation. Area of natural vegetation that are preserved in the urban area. It reduces ecological footprint. When we talk of ecological footprint, we're talking of it reduces the impact of humans on the environment. We did this game yesterday, but we may just go on to just look at these aspects here, where we are looking at these different services that are provided. Land use zone, to redo it for the sake of our time. An urban profile is the actual view of an urban area as seen from the side or cross section. This view shows the difference in the height of the buildings. Land use zones can be clearly seen if you study a city's urban profile. The tallest buildings are in the center of the city. This is where the most expensive and in demand land is found. So if you look at, let's say, any city that you want to pick in South Africa or in the whole world, you will see that typically the tallest buildings are found in the center of the city, which is what we call the city, the central business district or the city. So buildings have got their own functions. Usually they are office space, they are offering service to the specialized services like banking and so forth, and those are in the center. And as you move outwards, you find that the buildings become shorter and shorter and shorter according to length and functions. So we said this is where the most expensive and in demand land is found. That's where you find the investments, the $1 million or the R1 million investments happening. An urban profile also provides an idea of the area's density because it shows how close together these buildings have been built. So it also shows the density. So because it shows how close these buildings have been built together. Let's look at the internal structure and patterns of urban settlements, the concept of urban profile. So this is the urban profiling here, as you can see here. It's here. So as you can see here, we have got our urban office park, these buildings called outlying in the district, and then the central business district, where we have got the most or the tallest buildings, most expensive land, center of business activity, accessible. Then we have suburban shopping center, large shopping centers in residential suburbs, lots of parking available, entertainment and retail. Then you have got your urban rural out where the rural is touching on the urban on the outskirts. So let's just read this. We've got high income residential, which is here, low cost housing, transitional zone, which is in between the CB and suburban shopping center, the shopping center. Then you have got the industrial zone, which is on the outskirts, and this usually forms the fringe. So this is the fringe of the city. So you've got the fringe of the city on the outskirts. That's where you now begin to see the rural areas also going on to start from where the urban area ends, where the industrial activity is. Why is it positioned in this? It is actually done to limit pollution, to also health problems to the people, because pollution will cause a variety of health problems. So putting it on the fringe of the city is the most ideal way of actually limiting those problems. Then we look at what are the factors influencing the morphological structure of a city. The morphological structure of an urban area refers to the appearance and shape of the area. It includes the urban profile that we've just looked at. It looks at the urban profile. Urban profile. It also looks at the shape of the town. It also looks at the street plane patterns. We were looking at the streets yesterday. Then let's move on. Factors that influence the morphological structure are the physical, which is your relief, your underlying rock structures, then your planning, which is it planned, is it unplanned, piecemeal planning, and so forth. And then the transport, development of different forms of transport also influence the morphological structure of the city. So what do we mean by peaceful? When we say piecemeal planning, we say the town is planned in the residential layout as many different street patterns. Then the transport, the more the forms of transport made, the less the compact and towns developed along the transport routes leaving the city. This is the internal structure and the factors influencing the morphological structure of a city continued. Both physical and human-made factors can influence the shape of city boundaries. The physical factors are, we've got circular town. A circular town develops around a central natural source. Expansion takes place from the center outwards. So let's say the city is built in the center of an attraction, then it has to go outside. It could be a natural resource, or it could be a tourist attraction, and people are actually living on that resource. Then you find that it will be in the center, and people will. But this is not so in terms of, let's say, a national park. You find that some cities are constructed next to a national park, but because you don't have to disturb the natural environment, the city will be actually located outside the national park, and it doesn't have to be in the national park itself. Then let's look at the semicircular. Develops a coastline. Expansion takes place from the center outwards. Linear town develops along a road, river, or between mountain ranges. Expansion takes place parallel to the physical features. So here are the examples that of what we are talking about here. When you come here, let me the magic pen and show you the pictures. Then this is next to a mountain. So this is next to a mountain. As you can see, the development is happening on the base of the mountain outwards. So it is not going to be going above the mountain because the land is not suitable for any construction there. Then this one, the circular. When you look at this one, the central position is here. As you can, that's the central position that we have there. And then that looks more like a lake. And then you find that homes are actually constructed out of that lake and in a circular position. As you can see, this is actually in a circular, the buildings are in a circular position. And then let's look at this other one. This is actually linear. As you can see, this is a river, and the buildings are built along the river in a line pattern. So that's a linear. Due to the time, learners, we did our assessment in the middle of the lesson, and we are going to do an assessment when we start, when we continue with this lesson on Monday. So let's meet on Monday and continue with the lesson. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for studying hard, and good luck in your studies. Thank you very much.